You're listening to The Voice of Russia in London. I'm Tom Spender. Tunisia is the cradle of the Arab Spring movement, the first Arab country to remove a dictator through revolution. But it has been thrown into uncertainty after the assassination on February the 6th of Chokri Belaid, a prominent opposition politician. Belaid had criticised the ruling Islamist Ennahda party for apparent laxity towards militia groups which are accused of violence. So far, no one has claimed responsibility for the killing, which was followed by a general strike and protests. But it has highlighted deep divisions between secular and Islamist approaches, as well as issues of unemployment and poverty that could foster extremism. So, where does Tunisia go from here? Joining me in the studio to discuss this are Amira Mhadhbi, a Tunisian feminist activist and writer for Open Democracy, Mohamed Ali, director of the Islam Channel, and Dr Mohamed-Salah Omri, a lecturer in modern Arabic literature at Oxford University. And on the phone from Tunisia, we have Dr Wassim Daghrir, a professor of American Cultural Studies at the University of Sousse. So, I'd like to start by asking, is this a crisis for Tunisia? And if so, how deep is it? Dr Mohamed-Salah Omri, perhaps we could start with you.
Well, I think there is a crisis, and I think it's actually quite deep and on more than one level. I think there is a cultural, social crisis. There is a political crisis as well. And I think in the discussion we'll get a chance perhaps to expand on these issues.
Mohamed Ali, is Tunisia in crisis?
Well, definitely no one can deny that there is a deep crisis, but I think the real question is not touched upon it till now by any political party or political group.
Amira Mhadhbi, what do you make of the situation in Tunisia?
Well, it's definitely a crisis, but how deep, that depends on the take of it. How do you see it? From which point, from which level? Political, cultural, economical, that depends. But certainly there is a crisis.
And Dr Wassim Daghrir in Tunisia, how deep is this crisis?
Well, it's very deep. I mean, there is indeed a very serious political crisis in Tunisia now. And besides, I would say, I don't know the terms you'll be using talking about the Tunisian revolution, but I would use the present perfect, and I would tell you that the Tunisian revolution is still going on, has been going on for 2 years, and is still going on, especially these days.
All right. So the assassination of Chokri Belaid, nobody has yet come forward to claim responsibility for it. But what would whoever did kill Mr. Belaid hope to achieve by that? Amira Mhadhbi, what do you think?
Well, actually, anyone who is annoyed by the speech of Mohamed Belaid, because he's known of being a strong opponent, straight. He didn't fear anyone. So those annoyed by his speech, but by what he can reveal.
Mohamed Ali, what do you think? Who killed Chokri Belaid?
Well, till now, nobody, as you said, came forward to say who killed Chokri Belaid. This is something a bit strange to Tunisian culture. We have previously now, last 60, 70 years history, only 2 assassinations. But we don't know yet who killed him.
Dr Mohamed-Salah Omri, who is the speculation kind of targeting really about this killing?
The issue with Chokri Belaid is he had I'm sad to say, he had as many enemies as people who really liked what he stood for. In terms of the assassination itself, I think it perhaps it has at least a dual purpose. One of them is, I think Chokri himself was so important that I think somehow it could be understood as targeting him specifically to silence what his voice and what he stood for, and particularly what he would have become in the future. And we probably can come back to that discussion. The other element, I think, it also targets the situation as such, to throw a stone that, in a sense, stirred all sorts of antagonisms, and the result is right there. This crisis, so this killing, I think, served both purposes so far.
But who would be interested in doing such a thing?
perhaps sometimes we could take them separately. One of them, who would be interested in killing Chokri Belaid, is one thing. Who would be interested in throwing Tunisia in this turmoil could be something else. They may be the same thing, but they could be thought of separately too. And I think that's extremely important. I think it's extremely difficult to point at any particular finger for the killing of Chokri Belaid, but there is, of course, a climate that has been created that I think does not exclude violence of this sort, although, as I agree with Mohamed Ali, this is extremely rare, it's extremely shocking, and the effect was there. In terms of politically, I think there is more than one party. By party, I don't mean political party, who would gain from throwing the Tunisian revolution off course, if you like.
Dr Wassim Daghrir, what is the atmosphere on the street in Tunisia at the moment? What are people saying about this assassination?
Things are calmed down today, actually, because, as you know, the people were protesting and hundreds of thousands in the streets. And today, people are expecting the new announcement, the new government to be announced. So things are rather calm down today, but I'm not sure it will be the case tomorrow. People are expecting new radical changes, and I'm not quite optimistic about that personally. But to answer your question, who assassinated Chokri Belaid, I personally, as an observer, have no idea. I mean, I'm not fond of conspiracy theories, but what I know for a fact is that the Islamist party in power has tolerated the climate of violence, has tolerated a climate, an unusual climate of political violence and of physical violence. They tolerated their militias. They tolerated aggressions against intellectuals, against artists, talks openly calling for assassinations in mosques. And they're not comfortable vis-à-vis criticism, vis-à-vis everything Chokri Belaid symbolizes. And I don't know whether Ennahda really, or some people in Ennahda are directly involved with assassination or not, but I know that those are responsible of this very, very violent climate, political climate in Tunisia.
Mohamed Ali, is Ennahda to blame for allowing a culture of violence to emerge?
Well, that's very simplistic, to be honest, because Ennahda is not in her favor to allow such environment or such killing to take place. And now you have seen the results of such killing. What is happening? We are coming out from a revolution. We have the police, which was blamed for oppressing the people of Tunisia. So everybody is careful. Even the police now, they are not willing to carry any acts because they may end up in jail. We can't talk about Ennahda because there are three political parties in power. So there is a coalition. Singling out Ennahda I don't think that's scientifically fair. When we look at what happened even before this government came to power, the other interim government, we had all of that. Some places, I went to Tunisia myself, and in some places you can't see any single symbol of the government. No army, no police, no guards, none at all. So this is a post-revolution, and we have to expect that. We want to get out of it as quick as possible, but I think blaming and putting the finger of blame, I don't think is going to be healthy for the future as well.
Amira Mhadhbi, what do you think?
For this assassination, we all know that Belaid, among others, artists, political figures, normal people, they all had received life threats and no security measures were taken. And this is the government's responsibility.
You're listening to The Voice of Russia in London. I'm Tom Spender, and we're discussing the crisis in Tunisia. Joining me in the studio are Amira Mhadhbi, a Tunisian feminist activist and writer, Mohamed Ali, director of the Islam Channel, and Dr Mohamed-Salah Omri, a lecturer at Oxford University. And over the phone from Tunisia, we have Dr Wassim Daghrir, a professor of American Cultural Studies. Dr. Mohamed-Salah Omri, some of these militias go under the name of the Leagues for the Protection of the Revolution. Can you introduce, talk a bit about who they are and what they do?
This issue is slightly complicated, and I think we need to introduce a little bit of history in it. So the very first days of the revolution, as Mohamed Ali was saying, there was no central security, so people organized themselves in leagues to protect the revolution. It was fine and well. When the political process became clarified a little bit more, particularly during the elections and the aftermath of the elections of October 23rd, 2011, a lot of these committees simply disappeared, and some of them emerged again or consolidated themselves in these leagues, changing slightly the name and so on. One thing for sure, I think, and my colleagues here could correct me if I'm wrong, is that these leagues tend to be politically almost one color. Before, so different completely from the leagues that were before, where most political parties, non-partisan people, women, men, organized themselves in those. Those leagues emerged as more or less in support of what is in Tunisia is a buzzword called the legitimacy, Sharia. And they're in support or targeting specific, having specific target, for example, getting rid of the figureheads of the previous regime and so on. So this is the issues. And I just want to add one point. The problem is we deal with revolutions and we have in mind histories of other revolutions. There's quite a bit of suspicion in many Tunisian quarters that these leagues may emerge as the revolutionary guards, like the example of Iran. I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but people would have these in mind. So the argument is now we have a legitimate central power. The state is the only agency that is capable and entitled to exercise violence and security protection. Why these leagues are there?
Dr. Wassim Daghrir, what are these leagues doing? Why are they there?
Well, I would answer your question by asking another question. What is the scope of, what are the activities these people are doing? I mean, when do we ever hear about these leagues of protection of the revolution? And the only activity is destroying physically the meetings organized by opposition parties. That's all they do. So it's obvious to everybody that these so-called leagues of the protection of the revolution are the leagues of the protection of another. These people, they have a clear agenda. They want to stay in power in spite of their incompetence. So how are they doing that? The way I see it myself and some Tunisian intellectuals. They are acting at the level of religiosity. They are raising the level of religiosity everywhere. Every discourse they have is religious. That party doesn't even sound as a party. It sounds like a sect. Then they have no serious political agendas. They have just religious promises. But they know that that some people are a kind of a cause perdu. Some people cannot be attracted by this kind of dogmatic speech. I'm talking about intellectuals. I'm talking about opposition, parties, leaders. I'm talking about artists. So another wrongly believes that scaring these people can rather impose a kind of silence on the country. And they use their militias in order to frighten people.
Mohamed...
The assassination of Chokri Belaid, and the response to that assassination has proven the strategy wrong. Tunisian people are no longer scared. Tunisian intellectuals, Tunisian women, Tunisian youth are no longer scared. I marched, I protested the assassination personally last week, and the people who were marching in Sousse, I saw the same faces that were marching against Ben Ali 2 years ago, exactly the same faces. Young people, educated people, a lot of women with the same slogans. I disagree with the colleague who talks about a post-revolutionary Tunisia. No, the Tunisian revolution is still going on. The Tunisian revolution is a revolution for freedom, a revolution for democracy, a revolution for justice, a revolution for jobs, a revolution with progressive slogans. So nothing of that has been achieved under another.
Mohamed Ali, you wanted to come in here.
When you come back to the leagues of the protection of the revolution, I agree with him that the revolution is still work in progress, but he has to know that after 14th of January, when the president left the country, every single political movement, including the trade unions and including Ennahda as well, they agreed to the government and they supported the interim government, which is part of the old regime and is it is only these people who are the leagues of the protection of revolution. The strongest movement now is the old guards, is the old regime. The old regime are wanting and willing and organizing themselves with the clear-cut support of France to come back to power. And Chokri Belaid was against them. And this points the finger towards someone. And Chokri Belaid was opposed to the return of these people. And we have recordings of him saying so. So this is I think my friend is mixing the issues here. I think when he talks about they only do violence, most of the offices burnt and the branches burnt of any political party are the branches of Ennahda. Are you telling me that those who are violent groups and supporters of Ennahda, they burned the offices of Ennahda? That's what I'm saying. Yes, the security is not at its best in Tunisia, and this is something we have to work towards.
Amira Mhadhbi, is Dr Daghrir right? Is there a head of steam building up against the governing party and its lack of progressive ideas?
Well, of course, yes. And I come to the point to burning the branches of Ennahda that expresses the rage of people against Ennahda, because actually...
So the violence is from all sides?
Well, I'm not... we have different violences. When we come to political assassination...
Violence is violence.
Yeah, okay.
Assassination is a side.
Assassination. Political assassination is the ultimate form of violence, and which starts a new era. And actually, I'm not saying that Ennahda or Rashid al-Ghannouchi killed or used his gun to kill Chokri Belaid or whoever. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that the government and Ennahda party is responsible, and I know I assume my responsibility upon that.
Dr. Mohamed-Salah Omri, are we heading towards a confrontation of forces in Tunisia, and how is it going to play out, in your opinion?
I've been watching an increasingly polarized situation. And I think that the honeymoon that was in the first 6 months of the revolution, where everybody was friends and had the same aims, was gone during the elections, then after the elections. But there are polarization and polarization. I think now we're perhaps at the peak of polarization. I hope I will be proven right, because if the peak is worse, then we're in a different ballgame. I'm saying we're at the peak of polarization because, as the funeral of Chokri Belaid, for example, was an example, it was extremely politicized event. It was attended by one side only. The government was absolutely nowhere to be seen. The ruling party was nowhere to be seen. There is a situation in which even the ruling government absolutely cannot get in. So, in other words, the funeral of Chokri Belaid was an expression of a complete independence of a popular movement from the state apparatus. Along with that, and they could draw these hundreds of thousands, along with that, there is an extremely, still very popular and strong in terms of literally in control of the arm of the state, and also popular in many levels. And these two camps don't talk to each other, and the only language now is either settled by demonstrations and counter-demonstrations, or settled, hopefully not, in increasingly more violent ways. But that polarization is a bad omens.
How much do you think that this is similar to what we see in other countries, for example, Egypt, where you have a very strong polarization between different forces? And how does the situation in Tunisia fit into the wider regional dynamic, do you think?
I see them as different. They emerge differently, develop differently, and now I think they're different. They're a little bit becoming alike in the sense that the opposition in Egypt is becoming more assertive and stronger, but it wasn't the case. In Tunisia, and this has to do with the political history and the cultural history of Tunisia, there has always been two things: very strong institutions. And by that, I mean political, cultural, trade unions, and so on. This is not the case with Egypt. And there has always been a very strong progressive content of those institutions. I don't want to call it secular, I said progressive content. And that led to the fact that the game has never been over in Tunisia. Whatever the elections or whatever happened, it never was decisive that one side won it. And this is why I think the game is still on in Tunisia, and that is why I think it's different in Egypt. What Morsi could do in Egypt, there was no one in Tunisia who could do in the past, and now there will be no one who can do it in the future.
Dr Wassim Daghrir, do you agree? How do you see how events are unfolding in Tunisia within a wider regional context?
It would be too simplistic to compare to compare the situation in Tunisia to the one in Egypt. Every country has got its own specific context and environment. But I like the word polarization. These people promise jobs. We have seen no jobs. These people promise security. We have seen no security. These people promise the Turkish model, like a secular kind of Islam. We have not seen that. These people promise the new constitution any year and elections. We have not seen even 1/3 of that. So I understand the mood in the country. People are frustrated. This is there's no confidence in the ruling party anymore. So, but at the same time, we have a minority of Tunisians who are faithful towards Ennahda. I mean, to them, Ennahda, they support Ennahda whether rightly or not. They are supportive of Ennahda because to them, Ennahda equals Islam. That's how these people believe, and they see attacks on Ennahda as attacks on Islam. So you see how the propaganda used by the Islamists in Tunisia has led us to. So I believe that Ennahda is the cause of this polarization in Tunisia, not simply because of its message, not simply because of its focus on religiosity, but mainly because of its incompetence. And there is nothing Ennahda could gain from what is happening in Tunisia today. Absolutely nothing. So their incompetence is really the cause of Tunisia's trouble.
You're listening to The Voice of Russia in London. I'm Tom Spender, and we're discussing the crisis in Tunisia. Mohamed Ali, I want to bring you in here. What does Ennahda have to do now to resolve the situation?
I think we have to go back to the people of Tunisia, and we have to go back as soon as possible to the election. What I think they should do, because you can't have an economic plan in 12 months. That's absurd. What they should do is to quickly finish the constitution and straight away go to elections and have the message clear to the electorate and whoever is elected, because that's the only way now. There is no way Tunisians will be governed by fear or governed by power. The only way to govern is when people they give their consent. If we are not happy with Ennahda or we are not happy with any other party, and by the way, I can tell you,
people are clearly not happy.
Then we have to go to election because we have to refuse any oppression, whether it's under the name of secularism and whether it's under the name of religion. We have to reject it and we have to go to election, and whoever wins will govern the country, and then we will see.
Amira Mhadhbi, another election, is that the answer here?
Actually, I'm afraid not, because we tightly relate elections to democracy, which is not right in almost all cases. And now we are talking about elections. People who elected Ennahda, I'm not sure they are all, or they were all Enda Ben Ali Ennahda members or Ennahda supporters. The point is that Ennahda has been exploited, the poverty, the lack of education of quite good, important
That's
number.
an insult to the people of Tunisia.
No, it's not an insult. Sorry, it's not an insult. We have poor people, we have lack of education, and most of all, we have deeply, deeply rooted religious belief and, let me say, superstitions more than belief, because Ennahda is governing in the name of God.
And if you are not... Come on, give me one example. Give me one expression.
Of course,
that
yes,
they said
when you use the mosques, and we all seen how the discourse was during the elections campaign, saying that if you are going to elect someone else apart from Ennahda, you are infidel and you don't believe in God.
That's not true. 10 Islamic party contributed to the election. Came to the election 10 Islamic party, but Ennahda won. They won the election. Please.
Yes, I didn't say they didn't win the election. They won the elections, but I'm saying, that's my point, they exploited the religious beliefs and superstitions of people, the poverty, because we all agree and know that not only Ennahda but other parties used money to buy people's votes. And this is not insult for people, because we have people who are poor and who need money, and if you give them money this is what they need. So they give you their vote.
We have increasing polarization here in the studio as well. We've run out of time, unfortunately, just as things were hotting up. So I want to ask all of our guests to briefly say what they think is going to happen in the next year in Tunisia. Amira Mhadhbi, let's start with you.
I'm not going to say that the people are going to be unified, because they are already unified. This is just political issues. We are not divided. We are Tunisians, and there is no civil war or nothing at all, like international media try to picture the scene. This is fine, but we have to seriously think about a solution and just not think about being in power, but just doing something for Tunisia and for Tunisian people.
Dr Wassim Daghrir, how do you think the next 12 months are going to play out in Tunisia?
I'm personally optimistic. As usual, I think that, as I said, all we need to do is refocus on the objectives of this revolution. But I think politicians have got a great role to play here. All they need to do, rather, is change the message, adopt a less violent political message, offer people dates, like schedule a clear roadmap concerning the dates of the election, finishing the constitution. I think that Tunisians, who are known for their optimistic spirit, who are known for their rationalism, would rather calm down if they see their leaders rather adopting a different attitude, and if they see some light, like if they see some date, and if they see some, a less violent, as I said, context and a less violent message. I'm personally very optimistic.
Mohamed Ali, the next 12 months in Tunisia, what are they going to bring?
God willing, in the next 12 months, we will finish our constitution, we will go to election, we will elect a new government. And I think then the big question will come is the economic question, which I think the whole political elite, they don't have an answer to it. And that's the biggest challenge. And then we will go away from the religious and ideological debate, and we will concentrate on the real question, which is jobs and employment.
Dr. Mohamed-Salah Omri, the next year in Tunisia.
At the level of hopes, obviously, I share my colleagues' hope, and I have as a Tunisian, I have a tremendous stake in this. But in terms of where I think the country will be in a year from now, I have a feeling that the next elections will not be inconclusive. I have a feeling the next elections will be decisive. There'll be clear winners and there'll be clear losers. But I don't think the polarization is actually going to disappear. I also wanted to add a note. We're all optimistic in everything. But in a piece I've written recently, my belief is that, unfortunately, political violence have become part of Tunisian life. And I honestly do not think that's going to go away. And there are geopolitical reasons for this. And there are reasons within the Tunisian polity to this. I think, for example, one prediction I make very clearly, I think Ennahda will be split. And I think there'll be a radical Islamism in Tunisia that perhaps will put in doubt the process of elections, but I'm hoping the society will pull together, including the parts of Ennahda that will go in this project and defeat that project, I hope.
I'd like to thank my guests, Amira Mhadhbi, a Tunisian feminist activist and writer for Open Democracy, Mohamed Ali, director of the Islam Channel, and Dr. Mohamed-Salah Omri, a lecturer in modern Arabic literature at Oxford University, and on the phone from Tunisia, Dr. Wassim Daghrir, Professor of American Cultural Studies at the University of Sousse. Thank you all very much.